Hello everyone, welcome to Mastermind. So this is the part second of Indian Constitution which we were discussing. So in this, let us start with the article number 2. In the previous part, we have discussed about the schedules and article number 1. So here, this article is very important because this article says about two things over here. First one is, it is telling about admission or establishment of new states. This is very important with respect to article number 3 because we have to know the difference between article 2 and article 3. Let us go there later on. Now it is telling about admission or establishment of new states. But if you look over here on the bottom part, here it is telling about article 2A, and in this they are mentioning about Sikkim to be associated with the union. Sikkim to be associated with the union. These are the two things which you have to understand now. First one, it is telling about admission or establishment of new states. Now what is that article telling? It is telling that Parliament may by law admit into the union or establish new states. It is telling about new states, and here it is telling about admission. Now what does this mean? It means that the whole new state will come into India. It is not telling that there is one existing state and in that one part we will remove and we will give it to another state and will change the boundary or will change the name, etc. It is not telling about that. It is telling about admission, that is new state or establishment of new states. Here also it is telling may admit into the union or establish new state on such terms and conditions as it thinks fit. Two things which you have to remember over here. First one is admission itself, which is the new state altogether, not the existing changes. It is telling about the whole new state itself. And second thing, it is telling about the power. Who has the power for this? The power is with Parliament. So if Parliament thinks it is necessary and if the Parliament thinks that we have to do something like that, then it will do. Here only they have mentioned it. So the conditions as it thinks fit. Who thinks fit? It is Parliament who has to thinks it is fit. So in that way they'll be admitting the new state over here. I hope this is clear. That is article 2 speaks about the admission or establishment of new state. Now here they are telling that there is article 2A and this was associated with Sikkim. Later on it is telling that it was omitted, that is it was removed by the Constitution 36th Amendment Act 1975. 36th Amendment Act of 1975. That is, previously there was article 2A, that is under article number 2 there was another article which was 2A, and that 2A was speaking about the special provisions for Sikkim. It was associated with Sikkim, but it was removed by 36th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975. Now before we proceed, let us understand about this in a little more detail. Let us start with the timeline. That is, this Sikkim was ruled by whom? It was ruled by Chogyals. So if they are asking you anything related to Chogyals, you have to remember that it is with respect to Sikkim. Now when India became independent in 1947, at that point of a time, a lot of states, whatever were the princely states which were there, they were having options. They were having three options whenever those when this independence was going on. I hope you have seen that in modern India, but we will tell it over here again. First one was that they could be part of India or they could be part of Pakistan, or they can be independent. So during 1947, Sikkim rejected to join Indian Union and it became independent. Okay, when it was in 1947, it remained independent. Later on, who was the king over there? The monarch at that particular time was Chogyal Tashi Namgyal. Chogyal Tashi Namgyal. Later on, what happened is in 1950, they said that they will be part of India, but they will be their internal matters, they should have autonomy over it. So this kingdom of Chogyal will be having internal autonomy. They will be having internal autonomy, that is, they can do as they have been doing, but it will be within Union of India, and hence at this point of a time it became protector state. It became protector state in 1950. It had become protector state, that is within Union of India itself. Now coming down to 1974. In 1974, what had happened is, at that point of a time, the ruling monarch, there was a referendum during that particular time. Now what had happened is, in the background you have to remember that in 1970s and all, people in Sikkim, they did not want monarch over there. They demanded removal of monarchy, because there was a lot of rumbling which was going on in the political rank also. So they wanted a democratic setup. So there was a referendum. And people chose to be part of India. They said that, majority of them, they said that we have to join India. And what was the majority? It was 97.5%. 97.5% of the people said that they have to be joining India. Only remaining 2 odd percentage, they voted against the motion. And because this was not liked by monarch at that particular point of a time, they had demanded referendum again. But later on what happened is, in 1975, Indian troops invaded. So the Indian troops invaded into it, and then they seized the palace, and the king was placed under the house arrest. And later on there was 36th Constitutional Amendment Act which was passed. 36th Constitutional Amendment Act which was passed, and in that, whatever Sikkim was kept in order as a protector state, and later on by 35th Constitutional Amendment Act it was given other status also. That is, by 35th Constitutional Amendment Act it had become a associate state. That also was removed, and then they said that we will remove it and it will be made full-fledged state. Now here, this has already happened, so the probability of this being asked is a little less. So what will be important out of this then? They might ask 2A, which was under Article 2nd, is related to which state? So to understand that, at least you have to remember that it is related to Sikkim, and after 36th Constitutional Amendment Act, Sikkim was made a full-fledged state. It was made full-fledged state, it became. So 2A is related to Sikkim. So that has already been omitted, so it might not be that important for us, but let us say we have to understand about this thing. So 36th Constitutional Amendment Act also, like you can see that there is a special provision 371J, and this 371J, as we all know, it is related to reservation for or betterment of Hyderabad Karnataka region. So 371J is related to Karnataka, you can call it as. Okay, so this is related to Karnataka. Similarly, when they passed this 36th Constitutional Amendment Act, so they added the name Sikkim in the first schedule, because we have seen in the last part itself what was the first schedule related to. It was related to territories, correct? So in this case, they added the Article 371F under the 36th Constitutional Amendment Act. They added 371F, in which they had given special provisions related to the state of Sikkim. Okay, you have to remember those things. Now what did we see? We saw that admission or establishment of new state comes under Article 2. And previously there was Article 2A, which was omitted by 36th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was related to Sikkim, and we saw a small history behind that as well. Let us move on to the third article. Third article will be again important for us, because we have to understand the difference between the second and the third. Second is related to new state altogether. Third is related to changes to the existing state. We will see that. Article number 3 says about formation of new state again by alteration of areas, boundaries or names of the existing states. So here it is saying about the alterations of the existing state By making alteration to existing states, you are getting a new state. You are getting a new state. That is article number 3. Getting a new state or acquiring a new state altogether is article number 2. So there is article 3a, article 3b, 3c, 3d and 3e. So what we have seen in the article name itself, that itself they have explained here. What they are saying: alteration of areas, alteration of boundaries or naming of existing states. So they are saying in article number 3a, they are saying that there can be formation of a new state by separation of territory. There is a existing territory over here. There is existing territory over this particular place also. So maybe we can separate this particular territory and add it to this particular state itself. So this can be new state again, correct? So it is formed from the existing state itself. So it is telling that separation of territory from any state, or they can say that this is one territory, this is one state, this is one state. Both of these can be merged into one, correct? So this also will be the new state. So separation, by doing the separation also there can be a new state. By joining also, that is by unifying also, there can be new state. And this unification can happen with 1 or 2 states or 2 or 3 states, that is 2 or more states. Okay, by uniting any part to be the part of any state. So this, all the provisions and all the power will be with whom? It will be with Parliament. It will be with Parliament. We'll understand that a little now. Now that is article 3a. It is saying that new state can be formed either by separating a existing territory or by uniting 2 or more states. Then B says that new state can be formed by increasing the area of any state. By increasing the area of any state, and by increasing that you have to be diminishing the area of another state, correct? You have to alter the boundaries of any state, alter the name of any state. And this is very, very important, because recently renaming of the state of Kerala was also in news, because they are renaming it as Keralam. Okay, with respect to that, you have to remember what? Article number 3. In that name of any state, article number 3e. Article number 3e. Now, the most important part over here, they are mentioning in the bracket itself that no bill can be introduced with respect to any of these A, B, C, D or E. If there has to be any bill which has to be introduced by any house of the parliament, maybe that is Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, if they have to introduce any bill in order to increase any area or decrease any area, decrease any area, alter the boundary or then alter the name, if they have to do any of those, then they can be done only on the recommendation of president. Very, very important, only on the recommendation of president. So what we have to do is, we have to understand the list of bills or list of items in the constitution which needs recommendation of the president in order to be introduced in the parliament. In that, the first one which we saw is related to formation of a state. Unless where the proposal contained in the bill affects the area, boundary or name of any states, the bill has been referred by the president to the legislature of that particular state. We'll understand about this again. Now what they are telling, if anything of these has to be done, then it has to be done only after the recommendation of the president. Only after the recommendation of the president. Now, because there has to be increase, diminishing, alteration or alteration of name, it is affecting the states itself, correct? It is affecting the states itself. So when these things has to be done, the president has to send the reference to that particular state also. In this case, it has to send it to, let's say, Kerala, example. Or let's say XYZ is the state whose name has to be changed. So they'll send it to, let's say, XYZ. And then to this particular state's legislature, president specifies, let's say, some ABC time. Within this you provide your opinion. What is your opinion you can provide in this particular period. Here, that is why they have mentioned also that president, the bill has been referred by the president to the legislature of that state, and that state has to express the views, and this view has to be expressed within such a period itself, which will be specified in this reference only, which is specified in that reference only. Okay, so I hope you have understood about Article 2 and Article 3. Article 2 said that formation of new state by admission of new states. 3 says about the formation of new state and alteration of areas and boundaries. That is by separation of territory or by joining of territory. Increasing the area of any state or decreasing the area of any state, alteration of the boundaries and alteration of name. In this case, the bill has to be introduced in the parliament only after the recommendation by the president itself, and the president will give it to the refer it to the legislature to express their views on that, and the period will also be mentioned by the president himself. So this is about Article 3. I hope you are understanding about these articles and this particular series. So in the next part, we'll discuss few more articles. We are taking this really slow because we are understanding everything in more detail. Because you can see that in this constitution, they have mentioned about the explanation also. Because they have mentioned that states over here, right? So there may be confusion also. What about the states? Or what about union territories? It is not mentioned in union territories. It is not mentioned as union territories. And hence, can we change it or can we not? So in this explanation only, they have said, whatever is the article between A and E, that is article number 3, A to E, state means in union territories also. Okay? But in the provision, it does not include union territory. Okay? Here, the state means union territories changes also, but the provision does not include union territories. Why is that? Because union territory is already under the center itself. It is under the administration of center itself. Next one, the power confined on the parliament by the clause A. What is this clause A? That is by separating or joining. That is separating or joining. This includes to form a new state or union territory by uniting a part of any state or union territory. Because they have not mentioned about union territory over there, so that confusion should not be there. So they have made that more clear, that is any state or union territory. That is, they say that it includes union territory also. That is, union territories part also can be taken or states part also can be given. So all those things are possible. So it is that flexible. Our constitution is that flexible. So I hope you have understood about article number 2 and article number 3. In the next part, we'll discuss few more articles.